Q&A. Myself tonight, Lee and Phil. Ben won't be able to make it tonight due to personal circumstances. I could probably tell you, but it's probably personal anyway, so I won't. Anyway, tonight we're going to be answering all your questions to do with psychology on carnivore. So that might include questions about motivation, how to apply yourself, how to be more accountable, basically how to go about achieve your goals on a carnivorous diet, and even some stuff which might be out of the realms of what we usually speak about. So it could be spiritual, could be religious as well. I don't think any one of us are particularly religious at all, but we're happy to go into that and at least speak on that if that's a question that does come up by any chance. Anyway, Lee, I'd like to ask you first, just because you're here, about the psychology side of the carnivore diet. I know you've obviously mentioned your story in the past about the different health, digestive issues you've had, but what was something that gave you an initial click, and what kept giving you that click to sort of carry on? Because obviously a lot of people might start this and they might not get an immediate result. So what's been keeping you on track?
That's actually quite interesting that you said that about the immediate result, because the amount of times I hear from people that don't get that magic sort of thing happen, it all just comes into place immediately, and so they don't have the incentive, to continue. My motivation clearly was just complete desperation. I was just fed up of feeling the way I felt, and so I had all the reason in the world to take a big giant leap of faith, just with hope, because really that's what it's about. There's no guarantees but one. Everything else is hope. And so I kind of just took a giant leap of faith and hoped for the best, and applied myself and tried to do what I believed was correct, and it was BBBE in the beginning. And like many of the subs know, my 3 weeks turnaround was huge for me. I don't know if a lot of people, most people, experience such a huge turnaround in such a little time, and I don't know why. In some ways it felt like a long time, because the first week was, I wouldn't say it was hell, but it was pretty tricky with cravings and going from one style of diet to almost the polar opposite. And after about 2 weeks, my energy felt almost at its lowest, and so I was going up the stairs, struggling up the stairs. My legs, felt a bit heavier, and I was tired. I was ready for bed like an hour and a half earlier than normal, where I was struggling with energy. I just don't think I was getting enough fats in. My body was still probably confused and maybe just overstressed and overtaxed with this kind of massive contrast in diet and lifestyle. But after 3 weeks, we're just persisting on and continuing on, just hoping. Everything kind of seemed to fall into place on day 21. And so for me, that then gave me every incentive to continue. Like, it was night and day. If you compared the day before I went carnivore and day 21, it was kind of like, that's exactly why I tried this thing. And I wasn't still quite there with everything. My energy it was pretty damn good, but it wasn't like the way it is now. I don't really struggle for energy ever. But when I had cravings, and when I was tempted to perhaps, have a little bit of chocolate, because, I live with my partner, and she's got a daughter, Sky, and they still had stuff kicking about in the house, and not all of it's going to just expire straight away. And so there was things lurking around, and, they'd go open a cupboard and you'd get smells and things like that. For me, it was all about kind of like an outlook, like this mentality that in a way I was being quite stubborn, but to me, I owed it to myself. Number one, I was, I come for, it's important that I can function right. And at last, I don't feel like I need taken care of. I can actually be useful and helpful. And so, integrity. And I think also I chose to look at some of these foods the way they really are in some ways. They're toxic poisons, but I looked at these foods like, I'm not going to entertain these greedy, selfish, horrible people that make this food so available to everybody. So I look at food entirely different. I've kind of reprogrammed my brain even to this day. When I look at foods like, say, a pack of Maltesers or even a loaf of bread, I look at that and I think, that stuff's evil. I'm worth more than that. Self-worth, self-love, and stay mentally stable and strong. And that for me got me through to where I would say is about 4 months, where, obviously fat adapted, obviously great results, but no cravings. After 4 months, I had 0 cravings. And so now I'm in the position where I look at that stuff and I don't really have to go, oh, that's evil. It just doesn't make sense to me anymore. and it's no real struggle. There's no real struggle with it at all. And so I think, you know, hard work pays off. And I think obviously it can be hard work for some. I definitely had some incentive after 3 weeks, but as I kept improving and improving to the point where I had no cravings, it becomes effortless. And I'm very happy to eat steak every day. I always try and eat red meat every day when I'm hungry, and that's what I think about. And I could not say, you know, better things about this diet, this way of life. So for me, it's easy mode now. Life is on easy mode right now.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure a lot of the other guys can relate to that. Perhaps we'll go through around clockwise today. So we'll just ask Phil what his experience has been. So maybe what got you motivated to start? What's kept you accountable since? Because I know with all of us, everyone on this panel, you know, we spoke about what we're going to eat at Christmas time, and you're going to be strict or not strict or medium strict. The chances are we probably weren't that strict, you know. So what is it, Phil, that keeps you accountable despite having that like odd beer every now and then, or something which just doesn't sit right with your body?
I can't do the odd beer. That's just mashed grains. That's going to hurt. I agree with Lee. I think that, you know, at the beginning you have to have some sort of motivation or tricks. For me, it was if I was craving something, it was my gut bacteria craving it and not me. So I would always tell myself that, you know, when I went to fill up the car or whatever and walk past the rows of chocolate. But now it's been so long, you know, it's been so many years that same as Lee, I just look at it and it's not something that's edible. But my motivation was crippling agony to get started. And Ben often says that he envies me that I was in that much pain. I don't think he does really, but I know what he means, that, you know, his motives are not really that powerful. But for me, it was once I discovered that really was the answer to get out of that horrific agony of psoriatic arthritis, that, you know, it really was all I needed for motivation. But I see it with clients if I do consults, and if you get somebody with really painful arthritis, they're very often the most motivated and they do the best, you know, better often than people with MS. It's more difficult for them to keep on the path because it isn't so immediately agonizing, or a thyroid issue or something like that. So yeah, the motivation isn't there, but you know, the pain can get so horrific with arthritis that yeah, it keeps you on the straight and narrow. It really does. But it's the same as anybody. I did fall off the wagon. Well, only to the extent of, you know, milk. Well, not milk, but some dairy, some chicken, pork, and eggs. Summer before last, too regularly, and it really, really bit me in the arse, and it was proper agony again. I pushed it too much when I didn't think I needed to. But so yeah, it's lamb, beef, salt, and water for me, and I'm fine when I do that. So I stay with that. But yeah, there's a lot of other aspects to the whole psychology of it. I mean, one side of it is coming from a sort of yogi background and being, you know, eating Indian food, basically Indian veggie food for 30 odd years, and as well as other crap. But that's what I thought was my healthy part of my diet, and getting brainwashed into that. So, you know, that's another avenue we might go down, because people have said to me, oh, you're one of the only people who combines carnivore with spirituality. And just to say that there's nothing unspiritual about it whatsoever, really. And we were conned into that all along. So there are a lot of psychological aspects to it. How about you, Stephen?
Oh, hello. That was a very quick segue. I think my journey is very different to everyone else's. I think Jonathan's journey is different to mine. Just to make it a bit broader, I mean, the psychology of nutrition depends on what your issues are. So it could be emotional eating, so that sort of thing. Situational eating is underestimated, and I always use the story that never in my life have I ever been anywhere and thought I really need a hot dog and a big can of Coke or a big bucket of Coke unless I'm in the cinema, right? That's conditioning. That is just dealing with your emotions, and it's nothing to do with hunger whatsoever. But I think, you know, although that sounds a bit facetious, that is a real thing for me. That when I first started eating this way, I was surprised at how I'd been programmed. You know, we're not going to talk red pill tonight, but I was programmed to go to the cinema. Well, why do you eat? Even, you know, why do you even do that in the first place? You know, I never think I'm going to watch a film over Christmas. I must stuff my face while I do that. You know,
Do you know, I know exactly what you mean. For me, it was minstrels and cancer in a can, which is Pringles. You know,
right, yes.
yeah.
So,
Mad.
but going back, I suppose to me, in my 40s, I had been, or should have been, the poster boy for the guidelines. Right now, I know we're going off psychology a little bit, but we'll come back to it. I guarantee. And you know, I didn't eat anything bad, and I was a personal trainer, and I was a damn good one. I got somebody to the Olympics. I got somebody in the top 20% of the world marathon running from being 4 stone overweight and a smoker. Right. So there you go. That guy had a problem because he couldn't give up smoking, but he did because he found something else to replace that hit, that dopamine hit, that cuddle in a stick of tobacco, was losing the weight and being productive. So the personal training side of things, and this is where it becomes pertinent to tonight's subject. The girl I got into the Olympics was not me. I was just the guide, and we did a lot of things like visualization, seeing what you're going to do. You know, talk yourself into doing a positive throw and all that. So the mind-body connection, which people still think is not really true, it definitely is. You know, if someone goes out onto the soccer field and says, today I'm going to have a stinker, they're probably going to, because they're not in the right frame of mind. And I don't think you'd have to be, you know, having a degree in psychology to think, yeah, that's probably going to be a bad game for that player. It's pretty obvious. So anyway, through my 40s, I found I was questioning everything because I was doing everything right, but getting the wrong result. You know, if someone says you're going to do X, Y, Z, like Phil was saying about, you know, being a vegan, and you've read everywhere and you've seen game changers and it doesn't happen, you blame yourself. You think you're doing it wrong. You see, and this is perception. So that's another psychology. It's your perception that you are doing wrong because the outside influences are saturating you with misinformation. So you have to then get that cognitive ability. So I'm trying to deal with the keywords for everybody who's interested in psychology and it's in the thumbnail. And you've got to make the thoughts for yourself. You've got to realize, hey, this isn't working for me. And then you get into the isolation where you think it's only you because all these other vegans are doing really well or whatever. Right. So I was thinking, well, I'm a personal trainer and all the other personal trainers seem to be doing all right, but I'm getting a bit tubbier and I'm getting lower left quadrant pain and my coronary artery calcium scan is atrocious. What am I doing wrong? But then when you start to talk to these people, you realize you're not the only one. And there were other personal trainers saying, this is really tough and I'm not getting the results I thought I'd get. And blaming the clients, you know, they're obviously not complying, they're not adhering to the diet. All rubbish, of course. So you then take it into your own realm, you know. So Lee had a very, you know, physical manifestation of what was wrong with the diet, and so did Phil. Well, I did, but it wasn't as extreme, but there was a lot of it. So like the lower left quadrant pain, I totally believed in the genetic link between my mum dying of colon cancer, my dad dying of cancer, both, you know, relatively young. And I just thought, that's it. I am also going to die at 50 or before. Now realizing, of course, that's all rubbish because the only thing I inherited from my parents was eating the wrong things, which was allegedly the right things. So I had to take it onto myself and go forward with my own views, which in this day and age, we need to do more and more because we're literally told how to think all the time in the newspapers, the TV. I mean, I don't actually buy a newspaper. I don't watch a TV. I don't have a TV license. It's all crap. And the moment you take yourself out of that and you start to use your brain and use your cognitive ability to work out what's going on, you find out that actually nutrition is the key to many things. So pain, your perception of pain, the amount of healing time that's needed if you have an injury, if you get sick. I mean, that's the other thing. If you get sick, I mean, I haven't been sick since I've done low carb, which so 10 years I haven't been to the doctor. Well, I was a miserable creature every single winter when I was high carb and a advanced personal trainer and doing all the right things. Every single year I had sniffles and I was on antibiotics for this and that, and not sleeping properly. So I've forgotten what the question is, but the answer is carnivore, or eating meat, not eating carbohydrates. And I think just thinking for yourself, and you just become more mindful. You find things that are difficult, like cravings, they become easier. So the eating disorders, again, just going back to psychology, I think there's less and less eating disorders in this community than in any other community or way of eating. I don't find many carnivores saying, I just couldn't stop eating ribeyes every single night. And that's not because it's not tasty or because it's not enjoyable. It's because it's very filling and it's not full of stuff that's going to make you want everything else and eat lots of stuff. Or I don't want to get too into the weeds with it, but you won't have an eating disorder if you're eating the right foods. It's only if you've got the wrong perception of yourself, you're thinking you're doing the wrong thing because things aren't working for you or everyone else is telling you that you should do, or if you're malnourished. So if you're nourished, satiated, you are going to feel less likely to want to sort of binge and go after foods that really are doing nothing for you other than giving you maybe a quick dopamine hit. But yeah, I won't go on too long. But I think it's a really big subject. I think it's really interesting how many boxes it ticks, because it just makes all the things in the realm of psychology much easier. Everything. Cognitive function, controlling your eating, controlling your mood, controlling your emotions. It's all there. And I think a lot of the problems of modern society, without being too sort of highfalutin, is down to diet. I think a lot of anxiety and ADHD and all this sort of stuff is the wrong diet. It really is that simple. I just don't see it in carnivore. I don't have coach clients that say to me, I can't stop eating eggs. I am craving bacon. It's just, they just eat. They sleep better and they're happier. It's really quite simple.
I might need a question directed at me because I forgot what my own question was. Phil, can you remember what I was on about? I can't remember. My brain's I'm running on like 30% at the moment. So
I can't remember anything. I'm old and I've got a quinoa deficiency. I can't
that's the
remember
one,
anything.
yeah. Bit of scurvy as well.
A lot of that.
I guess maybe this doesn't link to the question at hand, but I don't know. But I had an experience recently where I had what you might call just a dream. So I just had a very long daydream for a couple of hours. And in that experience, I felt like I was kind of floating in midair, but I felt safe. It was almost like I was somewhere, but I was actually not anywhere. I wasn't actually on a map or some sort of in the physical presence. I was basically like a spirit, you might say. And I was looking around me, and I saw these like red tentacles going around me. And they had like blue kind of lines around them, kind of like floral tentacles. It's not scary, very comedic, almost seemed funny. It's quite odd. Anyway, what was happening was I was like moving towards these things, trying to work out what was going on. And I felt like I was breathing underwater. So I essentially thought, am I a fish or something? What's going on? Why am I breathing this odd way? It's like I couldn't. I felt like I could breathe, but it felt like a different kind of breathing. Not pleasant, but not nasty either. Anyway, I started to move close towards these tentacles, and I started to like touch them. Remember, I couldn't see my hand. I felt my spirit almost like touching them. Anyway, what happened was, as soon as I touched them, I felt all the pain I've experienced in my life in one split second. I was like, it shocks you. It's like it sends like your spirit backwards, like your soul is moving away from your body, sort of thing. Anyway, I did it again, but then I started to enjoy doing it, not because I enjoyed the pain, but I enjoyed the fact that my default was that I wasn't in pain, because I was touching something, I had control over whether that pain was affecting me or not. Then I basically linked that daydream that I had with an experience I had about maybe 1 to 2 months before my spinal fusion surgery. And that's when I thought, okay, this is the date that I'm going to have my spine fused. This is the date where I'm going to have the only solution to my spine problem that could possibly fix it. Anyway, so I obviously had a lot of faith in it because, you know, when you've had different procedures, spent thousands of different therapies, supplements, treatments, done every diet in the book, and you find no relief, you think, well, if that's not worked, this one thing, which is the biggest intervention I could possibly have, will do the job. It should hit the nail on the head. Then for about, I'd say, for the rest of that period before my surgery, it's almost as if I had maybe a third less pain. So it felt more bearable, like I could not do more in a day, but my day-to-day subjective experience was that I was in less pain. So I basically linked those two things together, and now my motivation's a little bit different. It's not so much that I'm thinking that I'm following the carnivore diet to, you know, reduce inflammation. You know, I've done all this. I've got the blood test to prove it. I'm as healthy as I probably could be right now, outside of being probably too lean for what I'm meant to be doing. But saying that, it's like I feel that I'm stronger from achieving the things I have, but not because I've achieved my ultimate goal, which is to not be in pain. It's because I've achieved micro goals. So I've set short-term objectives in that time. So, you know, most people that follow this way of eating will notice pretty much immediate or very, you know, near proximity in terms of like length of time, an improvement in symptoms of digestive issues. So if they're bloated from meals, they're eating half the mass of food that they were before because they're not eating watermelons and giant broccoli heads and things. So that's usually the first thing. The other things might be a bit more energy. Maybe the mood might improve over time. Some things take longer, maybe inflammation. You know, if you've got some sort of heart issue, your blood's not pumping around properly, maybe that might take a bit longer. But all these things start to check box. And I didn't have all those problems, granted, but I did have mostly mental manifestations of illness. So that is where my experience has come from. So a lot of my benefit has been from the carnivore diet on my mental health. So my psychology, basically. And now, given the fact I know that I've tick boxed so many of those things, so all these things which were previously maybe 3 out of 10, 10 being great, perfect health, 0 being, you know, dead. I'm now not a 3 out of 10 overall in terms of my health. I would say I'm probably about 6. So I'm actually living a better life now. So that keeps me motivated to carry on with the carnivore diet because I know it's held on to so many of those boxes. So then the next jump in my health endeavors to feel more energetic or, you know, manage myself a bit better, or I don't know, try and be more friendly to people at times selectively. That becomes a more achievable goal because I've achieved the other things so far. So for me, it's been a case of pinpointing small achievable goals that work towards a bigger goal. So that's my take on psychology on the carnivore diet. It might not make much sense, but that's been it really. Did anyone else have anything else to add about that, or did I inspire any provocative thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you're going into those realms. You know, you're talking about that daydream, which is kind of probably unexpected to people listening in on this, but it's funny because, you know, when vegans and whatever say that we're just, you know, aggressive cavemen and with no spirituality and that kind of thing. And I found it to be quite the opposite. Because you're really spaced out and your brain's malnourished as a vegan, you can think that you're in some sort of higher state of consciousness when you're not. You're just probably malnourished. And I've had that, where people go, oh, I'm so spaced out today, isn't it wonderful? And I've had times where I'm wandering around thinking that. But then as I got sicker and I started paying attention to what was probably really going on, I realized that no, I didn't really know what I was, because where I was or whatever, because I was so brain fogged and probably bordering on Alzheimer's or something. And this is what happens when it's like a good friend of mine who's been on my podcast, Chris B. He calls himself on my podcast, but he grew up in that whole spiritual tradition of Muktananda and, you know, some Indian guru, and his parents were into. And he said a great thing. And he's still a very spiritual guy and a carnivore. And he said, you know, were those gurus enlightened or were they just malnourished? And I think that's an interesting one, because I had before I did the Red Pill Buddhist podcast, I had one called Carnivore and Beyond that's still available. It's only 10 episodes, but I picked people who were very spiritual people, people like spiritual teachers or whatever, and people who had destroyed their health with veganism and their mental health and even their spiritual perception and even in some cases what they classed as awakenings they'd lost because they got so ill. And these were people who'd reintroduced meat or gone fully carnivore or whatever, pretty close, and had got back that spiritual perception. And I think that's important, that, you know, people often go to these plant-based diets because they think that it's more spiritual. And I don't think it is. You know, if you get into the whole chakra system and people say, oh, I'm in my higher chakras and whatever. I mean, what is the top floor of a house without the foundations? It's useless. So what's wrong with a lower chakra? You know, it grounds you, and eating properly will open that up. Whereas, you know, eating rice and dal and meditating all day will leave you with no foundation. So I think that a lot of the, you know, say we're not going to get red pill, but I'll go a little bit, that you know, a lot of the spiritual communities have kind of been set up to get you less in touch with yourself. You know, we've dealt with this in our Red Pill Revolution and Red Pill Food Revolution books of what's happened here and how we've been controlled so long with these plant-based diets and pretending that they're spiritual. And, you know, even the idea that some of these gurus were actually put in place by the CIA. I think that's interesting when we're all following them in the 70s and 80s and going, oh, we're all so spiritual. We're following this amazing Indian dude. And it's so much of the bullshit has come from that whole religious and spiritual thing. And I think that affects the whole psychology of it sometimes. When some people won't go carnivore, they won't do it when they realize they've already got issues mentally, psychologically, emotionally. And they won't do it because some dude in a loincloth or whatever told them, or some robe told them that it's really not, you know, it's tremendously unspiritual. And this is a really important thing to get across, I think, to people, because I think a lot of people fail to go into their healing because they consider themselves spiritual. And then, you know, and they also do this whole spiritual bypassing thing. I'm really spiritual, so I don't need to do any emotional work. I mean, a lot of the emotional work I did, like the EFT and tapping and stuff that I get through, it's in my Arthritis, the Best Thing Never Happened to Me book. The third is all the woo-woo stuff, you know, it's not the diet stuff or anything. And working on that emotional stuff. I remember somebody first suggested it and said, have you ever tried any of this stuff? A friend of mine. And I'm like, well, I'm a great yogi. I don't need to do any of that. That's just for like housewives and stuff. And I was so arrogant, you know, that's exactly what I needed. And so, you know, all of the side of it is people who talk about health as just the diet. I think it's really nice about this tonight because, you know, it does help everything. It does help to balance the emotions. When you see people, you know, in my carnivore group on Facebook, and I see people who say, yeah, I was vegan. I can't believe how I look back and how emotionally unstable I was and how I was so easily upset and offended and aggressive. But I didn't realize it at the time, had no idea at the time. So it's very difficult to dig out of that hole. But once you do start running on fats and not carbs, everything smooths out. Like Stephen says, the answer is carnivore.
Yeah, brilliant. Cheers for that, Phil. I'm going to get to the questions now. Try and keep them psychology specific because this is a psychology Q&A. So the idea is we can answer people's questions all related to that in one swoop. This just from a subscriber, Mauro. Hello from Oxfordshire. As per me, sometimes not having the actual need to go carnivore is the biggest obstacle because you feel like a small cheat won't be that impacting. Yes, I meet lots of young people who are, you know, in their early 20s and they want to get fit and muscular and they're like, oh, I don't really stick to it that much. Well, wait until you get to, well, a little bit older. Well, I wouldn't say my age, but get to Phil's age and you've got oxalates coming out your backside, you know? So you've got all that to look forward to. But yeah, your needs definitely defines how firm your objectives are, for sure.
Can I say something on that, Jonathan, before you move on?
Yeah.
Because the word cheat, right? If you're a 100-meter sprinter and you cheat, You're hoping that you will win because you cheat. A cheat meal is not going to do that. It's going to sabotage you. So, if you want to keep it psychology sort of specific, you've got to look at how you speak about things as well and the words that you're using. A cheat meal is not that. A cheat meal is a sabotage meal. And if you think it's a treat, that's the wrong thing as well. Because if you take the human out of it, if you've got a pet, for instance, that you think is wonderful, would you have a bag of treats that you knew would make that pet ill? No, you wouldn't. You want to give that treat, that dog, that cat, whatever, the treat that's going to make them feel great. So you wouldn't do it. So you shouldn't treat yourself worse than you would treat your pet. And you've got to put yourself in front of the queue and not believe all this stuff. Again, it's going into advertising. Or, I've had people, on the personal training side of things. Oh, I went to the gym and then I had, a Snickers bar as a reward. I'm like, at what point is that a reward? You've actually just undone all the work in the gym rather than reward yourself. A reward is actually going and saying, right, I'm being super fit tonight and I'm sticking to it. And then you'll wake up in the morning, you will feel better. And I think that's the way we look at these words and these things is vitally important to how we get on with this. Because, if I said, hey guys, just before I came on, I gave myself a real big treat. I had a big bowl of rice and I had loads of veg on it. It was really good. And then I had a Coca-Cola. You'd be like, what are you doing, Stephen? That's rubbish. You would just simply say that it's just not a reward in any way, shape or form. So sorry to get heavy on that one word, but it's endemic, isn't it, to do these things? Oh, I went off Carnivore at the weekend. Now, I live in the real world, okay? And I've got a client that has to go out and sort of do a lot of schmoozing with his bosses and stuff like that. And if he doesn't do that, then he's not one of the team, which is, see, it's a sad indictment of society that the only way is, it's not about merit, it's about, fitting in. And he feels that if he doesn't fit in, then he's not going to climb up the greasy pole. Well, that's the reason. It's not really an excuse. It depends how confident you are and how important your health is. But if it's keeping a roof over your head and stopping your wife leaving you because you can't pay the mortgage or whatever, getting the kids to school and feeding them, then take it on the chin and do it. So I do live in the real world. I know there are examples where people are not eating carnivore and there are real reasons, but I just think things like a cheat meal is not fitting that remit. It's just, I'm having a cheat meal.
Balance.
I think that's really spot on, Steve. Exactly on the cheat thing. Just before, I'm going to 1 second here, but Steve popped up after I mentioned the EFT thing, the emotional freedom technique, and he says that, but the Sedona method took me so much further. And yeah, Steve, Sedona method is great. There's a few methods out there, and there's Byron Katie's stuff as well. And whatever you use, I think it's fantastic. Some people like one thing more than another, but all of these things can be really, really helpful. And people kind of ignore it because they think it's all about meat, and it's not all about meat. Sorry, Lee.
No, it's all good. No, it's all good. It's getting the right balance.
Yeah, I call them off-plan meals myself, just because I do eat to a plan. If I didn't deliberately, if I just went about my day and like Phil or you guys just had like, I'm gonna have this much of this much of that, just guess it, just give my feel, then yeah, I'd probably just say I've been off the diet. That's pretty much all I'd say. But I specify off plan because I have a plan, because my diet is to reach an objective. Yeah, that's a good point. We got one question here.
More accurately have passed or something, isn't it? Really.
Cheat day, yeah, a day of not worrying about eating.
Yeah.
We've not got many questions tonight, guys. But I found these 20, but this one's from Near Zero. I have AFib, have had 4 ablations over the last 7 years. I'm head of my 5th. I'm losing weight, but very slowly. Do any of you have any advice for such as I? I've got some ideas, but I've got a few ideas. What do you think, Stephen?
Well, no, you go for your ideas, because I actually asked Near Zero a follow-up question, but I don't know if he's answered. Well, what's your ideas?
My ideas. Well, I'd probably lose weight very slowly. I don't see the benefit of dislodging calcified plaque fast, because that can just cause damages to the endothelial layer anyway. So I'd advise, it depends obviously how much weight they had to lose. If it's say 7 year, that we're looking at maybe doing it over like 150 pounds over about 7 years. That's very safe way of doing it. The other thing I'll probably look at is some exercise, but not too much, just based on what you can achieve. That sort of targets your main muscle groups. I think a lot of people just lose loads of weight, but they don't. Their body almost holds sometimes less muscle for it because they're not carrying as much around with them. So imagine if I was just to eat a standard Western diet and just eat pizza and chocolate all day, just gain a load of weight and not exercise. I'd probably maintain quite a bit of my muscle mass, to be fair, just because we're carrying around more weight. Now, it wouldn't be loads more, but it'd be somewhat more. So if this person lost, say, 150 pounds in my example over 7 years, then they need to find a way to keep the metabolic rate up. So when they actually lose that weight, they've got some metabolically active tissue to help with autophagy. Because the more metabolically active tissue you have through muscle mass, the more autophagy you can produce. So for me, a 1 day fast is like another person doing 2 days of fasting. It does work that way. It's based on your muscular mass, your metabolically active tissue. That's 2 ways. The other way would be probably supplementing with a high quality vitamin E oil or tablet, help with the oxidation of fat. Other things might include taurine, just to help protect the heart. Also help decrease the size of the left ventricle, which will happen if you're a heavy body weight, regardless if you're muscular or fat. It'll still get bigger. What are the other ones? Probably vitamin K2 supplementation, or having some chicken thighs, something with, raw milk with some K2 in it if you tolerate it, stuff like that. That's probably my guesswork if I was to pick a few things I'd look at. But what do you do, Stephen?
Well, sorry if I'm being thick here, but I don't even know if losing weight is a good thing or a bad thing. If do you know this person? Are they actually actively trying to lose weight, or is losing weight part of a symptom?
She's pretty healthy.
All right, okay.
I don't think she's heavily overweight or anything.
No, so that would be a thing that you could flag up and say, are you losing weight in a good way? Are you losing body fat, or are you losing muscle or bone? Anyway, if you look at AFib, well, what is AFib? And what is the ablations doing? Well, the ablations is trying to get rid of tissue that's obstructing the electrical pathways, basically. So there could be things that you're doing which are really quite simple, like caffeine, for instance, can trigger AFib. Anything sort of stressy or an overstimulation of some type. So we're talking about stimulants such as caffeine. Are you sleeping? There's too many things to ask, really, to do it as a broad answer on YouTube. But my advice would be to try and look at the things that can cause AFib rather than getting rid of the mechanical symptoms, because obviously if you've had 4 of these over 7 years, it's not working because you're getting rid of obstructions, but you're not stopping the root cause, which is AFib. You wouldn't need the ablations if you didn't have AFib. So what's causing that? And I think that's a big thing in this space, and everybody on this screen probably really preaches this, that it's not about putting a band-aid over a problem. It's, well, what is causing the problem? Let's get to the nitty-gritty, because if you didn't have AFib, you wouldn't be having ablations. As simple as that. It really is that simple. So you've got to go through all the things like, are you sleeping okay? What's your blood pressure like? And the reason I wanted to, I think I flagged up that there's somebody asked about blood pressure. You've got to look at all of these things. Can I just share a screen a second, Jonathan? Because somebody said what their blood pressure was, and I just wanted to show you a chart from a medical book that isn't sponsored by the pharmaceutical industry, and it's actually a proper medical book rather than something trying to sell you stuff. So this 120/80 for your blood pressure is BS, really, because it's only applicable to like a 19-year-old male or female, and even then you can still, 2024 maybe 120/79 or 1. Yeah, so this is age related. So your arteries they stiffen over time. So you should have slightly higher blood pressure as you get older. 120/80 was brought in, and magically all insurance premiums could go up for many, many people. It's not a medical number. It is an arbitrary figure that they've arrived at. So as you get older, as you can see, normal blood pressure 134/87. The difference between the top and bottom number is actually more important. It's called pulse pressure, and the difference needs to be about 40 on average. It's more troublesome if, say, for instance, your blood pressure was 120/60. That would be really difficult to diagnose, but you'd need to get into that because that's like a circulation problem, or there's something wrong with the returning volume of the blood. But anyway, so when you're told 120/80, that isn't really a medical thing. You could look that up. That's easy to find. You just have to look up age-related blood pressure readings. So yeah, one of your people put a mark on there and said that their blood pressure is going up. Well, that is a worry. A trend of your blood pressure going up. You've got to look at that, but don't spend your entire life trying to get it to 120/80. Try to get it more age appropriate and understand that it's a mechanism and dynamic. So you could take it in the morning, you could take it in the afternoon, you could take it in the evening. It'd be different. You could take it at the doctor's office where you're a bit more stressed, and it would be different. You could take your 2.5 liters of water and drink as much as you possibly can, and take your blood pressure before you drink the water and then afterwards, and see your blood pressure go up because you're drinking water, too much of it. So it's a bit more nuanced. So yeah, going back to the AFib question, the reason I'm tying that in is because one of the causes of AFib can be blood pressure or hypertension. So yeah, lots of questions, more questions than answers from that particular post, I think.
Lee or Phil, do you have a take on that question at all before we move on?
I mean, what I would add is perhaps just to try and optimize things beyond diet. So because it's all electrical, perhaps maybe grounding a lot would help. Maybe proper circadian rhythm. She's mentioned that her sleep is still an issue. If you were to set your alarm, if you just check on your phone while it's light, check on your phone what time the sun is going to rise, and then just set your alarm and try and get yourself into a rhythm, get yourself outside. Some cold exposure, just go out as you are, straight outside, ground your feet, and just chill and just take in the light as it changes and the sun comes up. All of this stuff, if you start practicing this daily, you might find that you can have at least better sleep. But you're really asking for a better electrical system, and it goes way beyond diet. You could eat all of the perfect foods in the world. If you're doing a night shift and you're not sleeping properly and you never ground, you never see the sun, it might not do all that much for you. I think for some people, we need to do everything, go above and beyond. So it's something that I'm going to try and start doing a little bit more. I do it pretty regularly, and I'm quite strict, but to kind of get up so that I can be there right at the beginning while the sun's coming up, ground and maybe cold exposure, all of these things are really, really healthy. That's what we're designed to do. We're not designed to be stuck inside, out away from the sun, nothing but blue light, cardigans adapted to the warm. That's terrible for health. So we should try and just look at it like, what is our natural lifestyle and diet? And in the modern world, it's very, very difficult. But I think it's something actually that when you were talking about, Phil, earlier on with, kind of a spiritual side of things, the way for me things have gone is that I just have a greater appreciation for life, mostly pertaining to nature. I love the birds. I used to hate the birds, kind of leave me alone, I want to lay in. Now the birds are a sign that there's another day. We got to get up and, take in the light. Let's be a part of nature. I appreciate nature more. And I think, even the animals, yes, to all the vegans, yes, I really appreciate and love animals. I love it all, the sky, the sun setting, the cold, the hot, the weather, the rain, it's all beautiful. And I have a greater appreciation for that stuff. And, I experience more calm with that stuff. And I think when you're one with nature as well, it's very peaceful. It might seem harsh at first to get up and you're cold and you don't really want to get out of bed, but there's a lot of calm that you experience from that. You take a moment to yourself and you just take yourself outside. You find your thoughts, they're calming. They're not sort of stressful thoughts. You're not worried. It's strange. But if you wake up late, you're going to be stressed. You're in a rush. You're in a hurry. the sun's been up, you've missed your window, your circadian's going to be out of whack, you know. So I would encourage to look beyond the diet. You know, obviously high fat carnivore is the way to go. Red meat exclusively is probably the best for the most extreme issues that people suffer with. But to optimize life and lifestyle, everything that you practice beyond diet may be that kind of extra 10% that you need. Maybe that will help, because it's all electrical. It's going to help perhaps fix some issues. Who knows?
I couldn't have put it better than Lee. Spot on, everything.
I might make a clip out of that, Lee. That was excellent.
He was really good.
Really good. It's English as well, and I think anyone would understand that. Yeah,
I'm not very well read. So there you go.
There we go. Get to the question here about blood panels. Be a brief one. Can you suggest a good provider to have blood panels done? I'll say who I use, so they might be good. Seems to be better than the other ones I've used. Medichecks, if you're from the UK, that's the one I use. But actually, Stephen, what ones do you use, or would you refer people to?
Well, when I did my private blood test clinic, I used Medichecks. I think they're very good, but they have quite big holes in what they will and won't do. They don't do a cystatin C test, for instance. If you are looking to do sort of things like your gut microbiome, there's Neovos, I think it's called. People can email me and I'll send you a link, which is in the UK, which is why I asked if you're in the UK or not, because if you're outside of the UK, I need to know where you are before I can answer. So I have a lot of people ask me about bloods all over the world, because that's one of the things I do a lot of. So, but in the UK, yeah, Medichecks is very good. If you're having trouble, email me if there's a particular test, because some of the labs will do a particular test, but they'll do it sort of off label, so to speak. The cystatin C, for instance, I'm looking at a lab that is not currently doing it, but saying to me that if I can get a batch run done, they will start doing it. So people power. The reason the cystatin C test is not popular is because the kidney panel that is offered in the mainstream is shown to be very much lacking if you have a cystatin C test, and you can have a filtration rate of your kidney that is subpar, so under 60, and people think you need some kidney treatment. You have a cystatin C test, which is a proper test about your kidney function, and you get a reading of maybe 114, 120. So it makes a mockery of all those other tests that you've had, you see. So anyway, she's in the UK, that person is in the UK. I don't know if it's a female or male, but yeah, Medichecks for the main is pretty good.
Lee and Phil, do you guys use any blood panels, or do you refer to someone else?
Go with Coach Stephen. Nothing to add there, really.
Exactly.
Yeah, and actually, I mean, I don't want to blow my own trumpet, but nobody else is going to. So if you want them interpreted as well, then you can email me and book me in, and I'll go through them with you.
I was about to blow your trumpet, actually,
Yeah,
Stephen.
I vouch
because that talk that you gave at our War on Health event a couple of weekends ago, amazing, really eye-opening, really useful. I think it blew up a load of crap for people, and people loved it. So thank you very much again, and well done. I mean, it blew me away. It was just perfectly describing why there are so many myths around it, and these things are interpreted wrong. So yeah, wherever you get blood tests done, give Stephen a nudge and get him to interpret them, because you'll have a far better idea than the fear-mongering drug peddlers.
Thank you.
Oh, look, there's a question. Any advice for psoriasis and psoriatic arthritis? I've got no idea about that one.
Somebody wrote a book about it, didn't they?
Oh, but it might have been me. I've forgotten. Yeah.
I wouldn't trust him, though. He used to be a vegan, this geezer. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, but that got me into trouble in the first place, so I had to dig myself out of that hole. Oh, we're doing that one. Okay, I'll do that then. Any advice for psoriasis and psoriatic arthritis? Yes, absolutely. I had it. I didn't have so much psoriasis, but had incredibly severe psoriatic arthritis. And yes, it is a carnivore diet. It's a very high fat beef, lamb, salt and water. Get your circadian rhythms right, everything else right. But on a dietary level, don't mess about. Don't mess about with any plants, any funny supplements, nothing. You've got to heal the gut. And you don't have dairy, eggs, pork or chicken either. Just don't make all the mistakes I did and end up with some joint damage. Get rid of it as quick as possible and just go high fat. It can say it in 2 seconds, but you know, explaining why is the difficult one. That takes me, you know, 90 minutes or so on a consult. If you're in real trouble and you really want to be set on the right path, I don't often say that this on these GB carnivores things, but hit me up for a proper consult, because there are real subtle tweaks that will make the difference between success and failure on that. And yeah, and the psoriasis side, the skin thing, you need patience, and it can actually go on longer even than the joint issues as you unwind it. An analogy I often use is that if you turn the engines off on a ferry or a big ship, it doesn't stop immediately. It carries on for a bit. The body's doing what it needs to do to clear whatever it is it's needing to do. But the engines have been turned off. Once the gut's healed, then you're going to be okay in time, and don't get demoralized and discouraged. But absolutely, you've got to heal the gut. But really, I sound dogmatic, but the only way to really be sure of doing that is fatty beef, lamb, salt and water. And when I say fatty, it's that sort of PKD, paleo-medicina ratio, 1/3 fat to 2/3 lean meat on the plate, around that area, very high fat. You will even maybe have trouble if you're not eating enough fat and you're eating beef and lamb only. So it's a real balance. And if you get it right, yeah, PKD, you get that right, and it will sort itself out. Absolutely, it will.
Very nice. We've got one more question for tonight. This one's about nootropics like powdered lion's mane. Has anyone used these sort of things? I'll give quite a long answer to this one, so I'll give you guys the floor first.
Well, I tried Alpha Brain, and I do think it helped. Actually, I did it when I was doing my honours degree, the honours part of my science degree. Now, this is where you get confounders, because I was also doing carnivore and also doing Stem Enhance as a supplement. But I do think that the Alpha Brain helped. I do, but I can't tell you categorically, because I was also studying very hard and I wanted to get a good mark. So maybe I was just very concentrated and I was interested in the subject, because it, you know, is what I do every day. But I do feel there's a lot to it. But the powdered lion's mane, you know, if you want to grow your nerves, because you've got nerve growth factor in it, it's a mushroom derivative, isn't it? You're better, almost Phil's answer, you know, you're better going to fatty meats and giving your body the nutrients it needs to build nerves. So I don't think you need that supplement. I think you just need to get your, you know, your diet on point. But I'll let you go, Jonathan, because it's your thing, isn't it? You were in that shop for a long time.
Yeah, I was in that shop for a long time, selling a lot of crap that people didn't need. I almost feel guilty for it, but at the same time, I think, well, most people are vegan. They're promoting the wrong lifestyle, and they're kind of doomed themselves. And they're probably poor for it now, and maybe they're going to be a bit more sensible and spend more money on meat rather than crap. Anyway, out of that sort of rant, lion's mane was not a particularly effective or well often frequently bought product. There was issues with a lot of the sourcing from it. Even the ones which were like, organically grown, sourced from specialist place. A lot it's so hit and miss. You can flip a coin and say if it's going to work for someone or not. I have more experience with people finding success from things like choline, choline bitartrate. So that's in eggs and things like that. Unless you're eating quite a bit of eggs, in my opinion, you're probably not getting that much. How much you need, very individually, genetically dependent. People with autism will drain out these things like mad. So I've noticed with myself, I've used these sort of things and I do get a substantial benefit for taking them versus not. Then again, if I was eating lots of eggs, no, I don't notice a substantial benefit. I'm more in line with the idea of using different amino acids. So one of them would be L-tyrosine. Helps produce thyroid hormones. It's almost like a resource to help create triiodothyronine. That seems to improve cognitive health. Also getting enough iron in your diet, so through beef liver as well, things like that. Just only meat pretty much have lots of iron in it. That seems to be really useful for cognitive health. There's a few more. Let me think. If you're neurodiverse, carnitine's important. Omega-3 as well is very important. I'd probably use those over it. But for most people, if you're eating eggs, good quality, high-fat salmon, fatty beef, fatty lamb, you're pretty much there. But if you're not there, supplements are much, much, much more useful. But they're the ones that I would use. So you're looking at tyrosine was one of them, choline, bitartrate, and iron. They're the things as well which you can kind of underpin that people tend to be a bit poor absorbing due to different levels that you might find in the blood. They're not always, but they're things that can be quite often low in the body. In terms of people that I've met, they've used it, not used it, had a blood test and seen some improvement. So it depends where you're coming from as well. You know, some of these things, like if you've got a completely nutrient dense diet, then a lot of these things aren't going to be that useful. If you've got leaky gut, those things are much more useful. So that as long as they're real foods, real amino acids, real vitamins, real, not filled with crap, basically. Does anyone else have any takes on powdered lion's mane and things like that?
Not really. I haven't tried lion's mane. Well, I have before. I thought it was a nootropic or even knew the expression, but didn't notice much. I do notice a bit of an effect from methylene blue, which I do once in a blue moon. Sorry, I didn't even mean to say that. So yeah, it's good. That seems to work. But I think the best thing, my favorite nootropic is fish. I think, upping the omega-3s sometimes by adding some sardines or especially oysters, because you got your kind of raw nose to tail thing there, and that can be really useful. I think it's not an old wives' tale that fish is a brain food. So, again, although mushrooms are not particularly a plant medicine, but they're not a carnivore thing. So I would say the old thing of, the fewer plants you eat, the fewer plant medicines you need to counteract the effects of the plants you've already eaten. And you can step aside from nature's polypharmacy. Yeah,
that's a good point. About the trace minerals in fish, they collate the heavy metals that you would otherwise be taking for your diet anyway. So that's actually another added benefit of the oily fish, I think. You think selenium, things like that. There's loads of little trace minerals that do different antioxidant things. Astaxanthin, it's a antioxidant, things like that. So I think there's more to it than just fatty meat. If someone's been poisoned as like hell, got loads of lithium, I don't know, what the other ones, mercury, maybe aluminium in their body, then yeah, collating those things out your body with heavy fatty fish is going to be a good idea, I think. That's pretty much it for tonight, guys. I think we'll wrap it up there.
Can I do just a really quick one on somebody's asking here, do you drink a ton of water all day? Mark S. No, absolutely not. The higher fat you have, the more the body can produce its own deuterium depleted water within the cell, and so you can kind of hydrate off good animal fats. You don't need to drink a load of water. That's another load of nonsense we've been told. It can strip out electrolytes, it can strip out minerals, it can fill you full of deuterium, depending on what water you're drinking, and of course all the crap that comes out of the tap water if you're drinking that. So no, just according exactly that's what Stephen said here in the comments. Drink to thirst only. Eat when you're hungry, stop when you're full. Drink when you're thirsty, stop when you're no longer thirsty. Your body tells you. It's quite intelligent, our body.
Let's just quickly go around just this last little piece, just say how much water roughly we drink each day. So how much fluid we take in, whether it be cream, raw milk, whatever. I drink between 2 and 2.5 liters. I'm close to 2.5 because I'm losing body fat and I'm eating barely anything. What about you, Lee? How much do you drink?
If and when I'm on raw milk, which is only for strategic kind of approaches to things, gaining weight, or I'm priming at the moment for surgery, but I won't be on it long. I drink absolutely no water whatsoever. If I eat a day of raw, which I do occasionally, I do eat raw, much less water, maybe 250 milliliters. But on average, if I salt my food to taste and I cook it, 1 or 2 meals, I would say close to 750 milliliters of water with Celtic sea salt. And I have just, for the very first time on Carnivore, started to use a little bit of citrate, magnesium citrate, malate, potassium citrate as well, and taurine. So I've just started to supplement for the first time on Carnivore. So that's what I'm also adding to my water, but I only drink around 750 milliliters.
What about you, Phil? How much roughly do you drink a day?
It depends if I do some working out, and it depends how salty my food's been. I tend to get quite thirsty about an hour after eating, but I would say never more than 2 liters. Sometimes only 1.
Yeah, it sounds about right so far, because based on our body weights, we're all different sizes. So yeah. What about you, Stephen?
I don't measure it. I've got no idea.
No, we're not asking you. We're having a guess. Have a guess. The question was roughly how much you drink each day.
4 cups,
less than a liter. Less than a liter.
Less a liter.
Yeah, me too.
There we go. So none of us are dehydrated, and we all drink 2 liters or less of water a day. There we go. For the most part. So there we go. We don't need to drink 6-10 liters of water. We're not dehydrated. We don't need more salt and more water because we're on a ketogenic style diet. So
yeah,
there we have it.
I think it would be genuinely electrolytes. It's not your body's going, I need more water, but it's really what you really need is more electrolytes. Maybe taurine will help with that as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, thanks very much for joining tonight, guys. Session number 22 of Carnivore Team GB with myself. Get rid of this thing from the screen so you can see. At Carnivore Muscle, it's my YouTube channel. At Kent Carnivore is Lee. Coach Stephen from Coach Stephen Thomas BSc, I think, or Coach Stephen. And Phil Escott from the Big Fat Challenge. See you next time, guys.